morning and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this event with BioPorto. With me today, I have CEO Tony Parra sitting in Boston today, and CFO Neil Goldman sitting in New York. And just some practical issues for the audience. You're more than welcome to post questions, and I hope that management will address most of the questions in their presentation. Otherwise, we will take all the questions at the end of the presentation, so please be patient. With that said, I would like to welcome the two gentlemen from US, and I think Tony will start out. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Klaus, and thank you for hosting today's call, and thank you to everyone joining us today for our Q4 and full year 2022 financial results and business update call. Joining me today is Neil, our BioPorto's Executive Vice President and CFO. Before we begin, let me remind you that the company's remarks made during this conference call today, March 30th, 2023, may include predictions, estimates, or other information that may be considered forward-looking. For more information, I refer you to our public filings, but let's proceed. 2022 has been a remarkable year of progress and achieved milestones for BioPorto. The most significant is the submission of our de novo application to the US Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, for commercial approval to begin marketing an NGAL test. This test will aid in identifying the risk of moderate to severe acute kidney injury, or AKI, in patients from 3 months up to 22 years old on a Roche Diagnostics clinical chemistry instrument. This age group is considered pediatric for regulatory purposes. Since submitting our application in November 2022, we have been in a normal course of dialogue and providing additional data to the FDA to support their review of the application. Specifically, and to illustrate the FDA's active review, BioPorto received an additional information, or AI letter, from the FDA in January. We are well underway to deliver our response in advance of the July 23rd, 2023 deadline. Our work to respond to the AI includes producing additional analytical data in the laboratory and performing additional statistical analysis to inform our proposed labeling. If approved, this NGAL test would be the first authorized pediatric AKI biomarker test commercially available in the US, and our entire team is committed to achieving that objective. Secondly, we achieved solid revenue results of 29 million DKK, which represents a 19% increase over 2021, while ending the year with 81.8 million DKK in cash. Just a short reminder of why we are in the business of addressing kidney injury. Acute kidney injury is defined as a rapid loss of kidney function. Since it is often painless and without symptoms in its initial stages, it can be very difficult to diagnose. Acute kidney injury can result as a part of an ischemic event or through the administration of strong nephrotoxic agents. Events that may cause AKI are sepsis, cardiac surgery, or any major surgery, and kidney transplants. When the injury occurs, you lose the function of the kidney, which is to filter blood and remove waste and excess fluid and produce urine. If detected too late and it does not resolve on its own, the kidney can progress through the stages of AKI onto acute kidney disease and then chronic kidney disease, likely leading to a lifetime dialysis or even death. AKI is prevalent in adults, but even more prevalent in children. It is expensive, costing up to $24 billion in the US healthcare system alone. There are no early biomarkers of AKI that are on the market today. And with the standard of care of measuring serum creatinine, AKI can often be missed. But if you do catch it, therapies can be applied very quickly that result in minimal or no dialysis and shorter stays in the intensive care unit. Fortunately, our assay, which measures a protein in the urine stream called NGAL, can detect AKI when no other symptoms exist. This test is run on a standard clinical chemistry instrument that are in use in all hospital core labs. So there is no investment that the customer needs to make in terms of capital equipment to run the assay. By utilizing NGAL combined with other forms of clinical assessment, patients can experience a higher rate of kidney recovery, shorter hospital stays, and more dialysis-free days. Although dialysis is a life-saving tool, it is not recommended if you don't need it, since it has an overall effect on the life of your kidneys. The basis for our FDA submission was a strong body of clinical trial evidence demonstrating the power of NGAL to detect AKI in at-risk pediatric patients. Data from our guidance clinical trial clearly demonstrates that the NGAL test provides highly specific, near real-time detection of AKI that can be integrated with clinical acumen to attend to those patients truly at risk for the devastating consequences of AKI. There is a significant unmet need to address this issue in children. That is why we were able to get the FDA's breakthrough status. It is also the reason why we have established pediatrics as our beachhead, as it has the potential to drive adoption more rapidly. As we eagerly anticipate the results of the FDA review and work with them to make sure they have all the data they are requesting, we are actively working on additional initiatives to expand the market of the NGAL test in the US beyond its initial pediatric single Roche instrument introduction. The first element of this strategy is instrument expansion. The current initial FDA submission under review is limited in scope to a Roche Cobas C501 clinical chemistry analyzer. We selected one instrument purposely to take advantage of the FDA's instrument family policy for in vitro diagnostic devices, which allows for simpler future filings for similar additional instruments after approval of the first one. There are several additional Roche diagnostic instruments already in place and suitable for use with the NGAL test. A first priority for us upon prospective approval will be to expand approval to the full fleet of Roche instruments on which the NGAL test can be run, expanding our market reach. At the same time, while Roche is the market share leader with approximately 1/3 of all hospital instrument placements, additional instruments from top companies including Siemens and Abbott are equally capable of supporting the NGAL test. Therefore, we will pursue with similar vigor approval of NGAL tests for use on these additional 66% of the US market. The following logical step, for which we are already preparing, is advancement towards adult indications. First one to be determined, and then several more. This will undoubtedly require additional clinical testing. However, with the market for adult being approximately 1.2 billion, or 9 times that of the pediatric market, the effort and investment, even at this pre-approval point, is well justified. Ultimately, we estimate the global addressable market for the NGAL test is approximately 3 billion. All the while, as we continue to advance US commercial authorization, we continue to grow and expand our European market footprint under our CE mark, which has no restrictions in terms of instruments or clinical indications. This is best evidenced by the addition of key executives to lead our international commercial efforts, including the appointment of Mr. Nis Cruz as EVP of Strategic Partnerships and the GM of EMEA and APAC, and Dr. Tabari Baker as our VP of Global Medical Affairs. Combined with the company's global marketing organization, BioPorto's executive team will focus on assisting our sales channels to drive market adoption in select European markets. This will include extensive market education on AKI and the value of testing for NGAL while strengthening our distribution network. I'd like to wrap up this segment of the call by sharing a recent picture taken last weekend of Dr. Yaakov Shacham of Tel Aviv University and the acting director of cardiology and intensive care at Tel Aviv Sorovsky Medical Center. Here, Dr. Shacham is discussing the value of the NGAL biomarker and its predictive value in treating myocardial infarction patients. This paper was published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine, concluded that among patients undergoing primary coronary intervention, NGAL levels are associated with adverse renal and clinical outcomes, independent of other traditional inflammatory markers. Before I turn things over to Neil, I would like to provide a word on future capital requirements. Improving revenue from European markets combined with our growing antibody revenues are important actions to mitigate capital risk given the current turbulent financial markets. We also don't control the timeline with the FDA. We continue to maintain a conservative cash spend strategy and will consider other cost control measures to extend our cash runway. This, combined with unknown factors, drive us to conclude that the likelihood of the need to raise additional capital at some point in advance of FDA approval is high. And as such, we are exploring those avenues to provide the company with flexibility when we re-engage with the capital markets. Appropriately turning to financials then, I will turn the call over to our CFO, Neil Goldman.
Neil, put on your mic.
Unmute, Neil.
Thank you. I did that. There were some sirens going around outside, and I didn't want to disturb that. So hopefully you can hear me better now. So thanks, Tony, and hello, everyone. I was happy to walk through the 2022 financial results. As we pre-announced earlier this month, 2022 ended favorably in several respects. Starting off with revenues, 2022 revenue was 29.0 million kroner, or $4.1 million, representing a growth of 19% over the prior year period. Total revenue exceeded both the company's original outlook of 24 to 26 million kroner and its updated range of 24 to 27 million kroner, reflecting favorable performance with our two largest product lines, NGAL tests and antibodies. To illustrate this, please refer to the chart on the left, which shows annual revenue by product group. Each bar also shows the contributions by quarter, and the labels at the top of the bars are the annual amounts in millions of kroner. NGAL test revenue in 2022 totaled 14.9 million kroner, an increase of 2.5 million kroner, or 20%, over the prior year period. Antibody revenue in 2022 totaled 12 million kroner, an increase of 2.7 million kroner, or 29.5% over the prior year period. This growth was somewhat offset by a reduction in revenue from ELISA kits and other items of 0.5 million kroner compared to the prior year period. The right side chart shows revenue by quarter for 2022 and 2021. Revenue in the fourth quarter of 2022 was 8.7 million kroner, or $1.2 million, which was 28% higher than the fourth quarter of 2021. As we have discussed on prior earnings calls, NGAL test sales may have timing variability among U.S. customers because the test is presently a research use only product there. This next slide provides further historical trend information on sales of NGAL tests, which, as I said, are up 20% on a year-to-date basis over the prior year period. The chart shows a rolling last 12-month NGAL test sales. Gross profit for 2022 totaled 19.0 million kroner, corresponding to 65.7% margins. These results also represented a 4.0 million kroner increase in gross profit over the prior year period. The increase in gross profit resulted from the combined benefit of higher sales volume and a 370 basis point improvement in gross profit percentage over the prior year period. Both the EBIT and adjusted EBITDA loss operating results were also favorable compared to the company's original outlook and its most recent guidance. EBIT loss for the period was 81.5 million kroner, or $11.5 million, a 25% increase over the prior year period. Adjusted EBITDA loss for the fourth quarter of 2022 was 17.9 million kroner, or $2.4 million, a 6% increase over the prior year period. These are illustrated on the chart, which in particular shows historical quarterly adjusted EBITDA and cash balances. I'd like to highlight one particular component of the EBIT loss because it illustrates the judicious mitigating actions we have taken and will continue to take to protect or strengthen BioPorto's financial position. BioPorto recently executed a letter of intent to sublease our office space in Needham, Massachusetts in the US. We expect that this will reduce our cash infrastructure costs by approximately 2.8 million kroner over the next 3 years. As a function of the lease accounting rules, the fourth quarter of EBIT loss includes a non-cash lease impairment charge of 2.6 million kroner. For the year ended December 31, 2022, adjusted EBITDA was a loss of 67.3 million kroner, or $9.5 million. This represented a 5.3 million kroner, or 8.5% increase compared to the 62.0 million adjusted EBITDA loss in kroner in the prior year period. Moving to the balance sheet. As Tony said earlier, we had cash and cash equivalents of 81.8 million kroner, or $11.7 million as of December 31st, 2022. I'm pleased to report that we reduced our total 2022 cash used in operations by 11.2 million kroner, or 16% over the prior year period. This improvement was principally related to our favorable management of working capital, in particular accounts receivable, together with the timing benefit of accounts payable and other items. Net working capital as of December 31st, 2022 totaled 70.5 million kroner. Now I will review the 2023 outlook that was announced yesterday, specifically revenue of approximately 30 to 33 million kroner and an adjusted EBITDA loss of approximately 60 to 65 million kroner. The 2023 outlook is supported by key assumptions in 6 areas. First, it assumes minimal growth in the US NGAL test revenues during the FDA review process. Similarly, since approval timing is unknown, no post-approval US revenue is included in the 2023 outlook. Second, costs related to clinical studies are assumed to be lower than in 2022, while the current FDA approval is pending. Third, as Tony described, while FDA approval is pending, we are focused on selling NGAL tests where they are already approved with a CE marked product in Europe, and we're similarly seeking to expand antibody sales. Therefore, we expect sales and marketing costs to increase compared to 2022, associated with business development and global product marketing, including travel and related expenses, reimbursement studies, and expanded distributor material and content support. Fourth, R&D costs, excluding those related to clinical trial activities, are assumed to increase compared to 2022, including due to the full year impact of hiring over the last year, investments in studies to prepare regulatory filings to increase the addressable US market through expanded clinical chemistry analyzer claims, and investments in manufacturing and quality systems. Fifth, administrative costs are expected to be comparable to 2022. And finally, as Tony and I have already highlighted, we will take judicious mitigating actions throughout the year to protect or strengthen BioPorto's financial position, including reducing operating expenses in targeted areas. Like other prudent companies, we have taken and will continue to take proactive measures to run lean, conserve capital, and plan expenditures carefully and critically. Finally, BioPorto's outlook is subject to risk factors, including those described in the 2022 annual report. With that, I will turn the call back to Tony for closing remarks.
Thank you, Neil. I'd like to wrap up the call by talking about announcements we made yesterday regarding the board of directors. First, I'm very excited that the board plans to nominate Dr. Nympha Saunders to join the board at the annual general meeting next month. Dr. Saunders was most recently the president and CEO of one of the largest healthcare systems in the US. Her impressive background is in the announcement, but I will also share that I've known and had the opportunity to work very closely with her in the past. And I am confident that as someone that has led operations of a large healthcare provider, she will provide the unique provider and payer perspective on how we drive adoption of our valuable asset. Second, I want to recognize Chris Lindop, who has served on the board of directors for several years, most recently as its chairman. Chris has decided for personal reasons not to stand for re-election. On behalf of the entire company, I want to thank him for his leadership and wish him well. Finally, I would like to thank all our clinical calibration partners, customers, employees, and shareholders for all the support required to get this life-saving test to the market for eventual use. With that, I would like to turn it over back over to Claus for questions.
Thanks a lot, Tony, and thanks a lot, Neil, for taking us through your presentation. And as Tony mentioned, now we open up for questions, and there's already quite a lot of questions coming in. So thanks a lot for that. First of all, if we look into NGAL and the FDA procedure, you received this AI letter. Is this, Tony, you could probably elaborate a little on that. Is this a standard procedure, or is there something we should be aware of in terms of such a letter?
This is very standard procedure when it comes to a biomarker like ours. In fact, many applications have 1, 2, or 3 of these additional information letters. I don't believe people are very aware that when you submit an application to the FDA, it is very much an interactive process, going back and forth with the FDA, answering their questions before they provide their final approval. So this is not worrisome at all. We have to, perform some additional testing in the laboratory to answer their questions, but like I said, this is very normal.
And if we look into the deadline here, should we put too much into that? I could imagine you guys are already working on answering the letter, and you will do your best to answer the questions before time.
Yes, we're very confident that we're able to respond to the FDA, but before the deadline, if not, even sooner.
And then if we stay on NGAL, because something new for most investors here is the focus back to Europe and stepping up there. First of all, could you elaborate a little on that? You did already, but are there other countries outside Europe that you could use NGAL testing in as well?
Sure. So, we're going after the countries where we already have registration. So CE mark allows us to market to all the EU countries, but we also have registrations in other countries, some where we actually have a very good business. I'll take, for instance, Korea, where we're registered in Korea. We sell in Korea. We know that NGAL is in clinical use in Korea. And most recently, we sent our, Mr. Cruz, along with one of our sales managers, to Korea to learn exactly what they're doing to, basically promote our product at their customers, and, and see how we can assist them in terms of, growing their customer base. But yes, we have registrations in Korea, India, and a number of other countries, and we'll continue to promote there. What this doesn't mean, though, is that we will be very active in terms of registrations in other countries where they require significant data. Our regulatory team is very focused on answering the FDA and working with the FDA, as well as looking at the regulations required to get these additional indications.
Yeah, usually you can piggyback on your FDA approval in China. Isn't that true?
Yes, exactly.
Then a small question for you, Neil, in terms of guidance, if we just stay at NGAL, because you expect a smaller loss in this year compared to last year, but you expect a higher turnover. That's, of course, positive. Is this related to the NGAL outside US? Of course, there's a combination of the two products you have, but could you elaborate a little on that?
Yes, I'm happy to. Yes, so it's a combination of all the factors. As you said, the higher revenues, I've described that we're not expecting much growth in the US while it is still a research use only product, because there's appropriate prohibitions on being able to promote it in the US until it receives marketing approval. But in Europe, as well as in the antibody business, for all the reasons Tony just described, those are what factored into the revenue growth. And certainly with the healthy margins that we experience, that has an impact on the bottom line, as well as the actions and the balance of cost planning that we're doing in terms of the bottom line results.
And then if we take the next step to the funding issue, both of you gentlemen, you addressed sorry, the issue in your presentation. Now it's more or less 12 months since you went out with the last issue, and you also addressed in the prospect at that time that those money would take you 12 months forward. You announced recently that you are looking in the ball game of 75 million DKK. Are you looking at all different options, long-term options like loans, directed issue, more broader issue, or are you excluding some of these things?
I'll let you take that, Neil.
Yeah, sure. So as we said in the business update recently, we are looking at various approaches to capital. I would say that, well, on one hand, we're open to different considerations and what makes sense for the business, and the board in particular will consider that. A business at this stage, debt is probably not the right solution for it, for reasons people probably will understand. And by the way, while I've got the floor, I did see that a question came in related to why would we be expecting a reduction in clinical trial costs? And that has to do really from a timing standpoint, because while the FDA is reviewing the current NGAL submission, we can't start, well, we could, but you're taking a lot of risk to start a next clinical trial without the benefit of the feedback. Just as the company did a lot of interactive pre-submission discussions with the FDA prior to embarking on this clinical trial, that also was part of getting the breakthrough designation that we received. A similar process is likely anticipated as part of moving to the adult indications, and that's why the timing of when clinical trial costs would occur. But we would absolutely expect that in the future. We're just not planning for that for guidance purposes for 2022. If we have the opportunity to pull that ahead, we certainly would.
Thanks a lot, Neil. So the conclusion on this is as soon as you get green light from FDA and you take the next step, then you're also able to be more or clarify more about the next steps in terms of broaden the indication or seek applications in other countries. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, so the instrument work we can begin right away, and we have already started the instrument work in terms of expanding to other instruments. When it comes to other clinical indications like the adult indication, we can start some work in terms of gathering real world data, but the prudent thing to do is actually sit with the FDA in a meeting called a pre-sub meeting to go over what your clinical trial design will look like, what your submission may look like, just to get input from the FDA prior. It's not required. It is something that is very prudent for us to do. In the meantime, like I said, we'll gather the real world data to have that meeting. You can't have that meeting while you still have an application in for approval on a product, unfortunately.
That's fully understand.
For just to punctuate that for everyone, I know we have a lot of long-term shareholders, and Tony and I very much appreciate that, only having been with the company for now not quite a year and a half. But we understand the past and the history in the US. And this approach that we're describing with the FDA is the approach that has taken us to where we are, as opposed to some of the prior historical challenges. And that's why we've got people on board now that have experience in taking these products through the FDA and launching them in the US successfully, time and time again.
Thanks a lot, Neil. And if anybody in the audience have more questions, please post the questions and I will pass them on to management. Yeah, it's oh yeah. Sorry, just this one question coming up here. Let's see here, 2 seconds. Do you see the questions here? What is the current IP situation time-wise? I missed that. Sorry, that's probably for Tony.
Intellectual property?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so we have patents on our technology that take us out to 28 and 29, I guess, 2028 and 2029. So we have some patent runway. We continue to invest in generating new IP as well, right? So we'll file subsequent patents based on some of the developments that we're doing.
Thanks a lot, Tony. So if there's not any more questions, I would take the opportunity to first of all thanks Tony and Neil for a very great presentation. And I would like to thank the audience for all the great questions. So with that said, enjoy your day, gentlemen, and enjoy your day, audience. And hopefully we will see you soon again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Klaus, for hosting us.
Thank you.